August 30th, 1946. I was born at Eastern Maine General Hospital in Bangor. My family came to Winterport, I think mainly because of the granite. They were granite cutters. And they came, and the house that I lived in Winterport was on the corner of Main and Marine Street. I grew up right there, still there. What was it like growing up here? I think it was great. It was, I don't know, it was just a good place to grow up. There was no crime, there was no, the town was self-contained. Everybody knew everybody else. It was just a good place to grow up. Probably my oldest friend is downstairs right now being interviewed. We went to school together from the first grade right up through. Joined the Navy together, came home, been friends ever since. Well, in the wintertime, one of my friend's father bought us a bobsled, and we could slide all the way from a Catholic church down the road, because it wasn't plowed like it is today. There was snow on it. And we go through a box culvert that's down by Wig Street and out onto the ice on the river. In an afternoon, you could probably make 2 trips in a day. That was it. And we used to go up by the veterinarian, where the veterinarian clinic is, and ski on those hills up there. We'd spend all day packing the snow down, and maybe we would get 1 or 2 trips down there, and then it was time to go home. So most of our activities were outdoors, year-round. There was no TV. I didn't grow up with a TV, and nobody else did either. And so outdoor activities were what we did. Well, I'll tell you, I was telling Ed Russell that in the wintertime, when the ice would come down the river, down here in Hardy's Cove, which is right in back of us down here, we'd catch the tide just right and ride the icebergs as they came in off the river up into the shore on the other end, jump off them. We did it day after day. Of course, our parents never knew about it, but it was great activity. When I was in high school, everybody that had any kind of a barn around here had chickens. The chicken industry in Waldo County was big, and there was always work. There was always work, and you'd go from one chicken farm to the next for putting in chicks, taking out chicks, cleaning out afterwards, carrying grain, washing waterers. And you were expected to. They needed you. I have been on several committees in the town. I always like to volunteer my time because I love Winterport, and if I can give back a little bit, why, I feel good about it. I was on the cemetery committee for a long time, and we took it over from the town of Winterport and made it responsible and did a great job with it. Growing up, the town was self-contained. We had 3 grocery stores, had 3 filling stations, had a kind of a department store. So they were all good. There was a Rexall store, drugstore. There was a cleaners, insurance companies. So you could do whatever you needed, you could get right here in Winterport. Well, there was a beer parlor up on the end of town. That was before my time, but that's where a lot of the locals hung out. And there was Winterport Inn. Had a bar, and they even had a piano player there. There was a lot of activity around that. I think Winterport's Centennial was big. It was big, the parades, and we had fireworks, and everybody in town kind of got together. They had some plays that reenacted the first settlers, and open houses at the Union Meeting House and the Historical Society, and I'm assuming all the churches were open. It was kind of a big event. Well, the older buildings, I think they should be preserved. Up in Oak Point, there was a brick factory, the first woman in the United States that had a business. That's kind of neat to go see where they dug the clay out of the bank, and they had alders there, and they'd build a kiln under the alders and put the brick in it, and then set the kiln on fire, set the whole thing on fire to fire the brick and burn it down, and that would be your brick factory. There was a vinegar factory down on Steamboat Avenue. What is now the marina at the end of Commercial Street was called the Potato Docks, and that's where they first shipped potatoes out of Winterport. I had twin boys and another one. I had three children all within three years of each other. So it was that, but it was still a good place for them to grow up. It was easy. Yeah, my son is the fire chief here, and one of my other sons is a paramedic on the ambulance service. Winterport was full of characters when I was growing up, and there was two men that lived here. One was named John Hall, and the other one was named Earl Jepson. They called him Jippy. And neither one of them were real ambitious. So they were sitting on the library steps there one day trying to figure out how they could get some money to buy beer. So Jippy says to John, he says, you know, my father's got a lawnmower. He said, maybe we could mow a few lawns. So John looked at me and he says, why don't we sell the lawnmower? My grandfather worked for the Eastern Steamship Company, for the Boston boats that went from Bangor to Boston. And he and his friend Cy Higgins, who was from Winterport, my grandfather was a purser and Cy was a deckhand. And they worked on the boats. And there was another man that lived in Winterport named Lawrence McCormick, who had a chicken farm down on Commercial Street. He used to, when the boat was going to Boston, he'd load up with eggs and take them to Boston to sell them. So one night they loaded the eggs on the boat, and Lawrence went to bed, and my grandfather and Cy Higgins took his eggs down the boiler room and hard-boiled all the eggs and then put them back. So the next day, old Lawrence sold his eggs to all the housewives in Boston, and laughed. They came back. Well, the next time when they came down, when the boat docked, every woman in Boston that bought eggs was standing there with a rolling pin waiting to get their money back, and Lawrence was out of the egg business. I went to first grade underneath the town hall. There was first grade in there, and at the time there was the first grade. I think the town had 2 fire trucks they packed in there and a school bus, all underneath that. Graduations were held in the town hall. The plays, school plays were always held in any function. Town meeting was held in the town hall. Oh yeah, I love Winterport. I can't think of another place I'd want to live. I retired as a tour bus driver, and I've been all over the eastern United States and Canada, and Winterport's the place. Well, the businesses moved out. The town couldn't support them. You know, the regular grocery stores, they're gone. Hanson's, which was the department store, that left. There was no reason for that. There was a florist shop, and the bigger ones in Hamden and Bangor took over. So, you know, there was a change of economy. Went from being a self-contained town to not. The roads got better. It was easier to travel to Bangor and Hamden, Belfast. Oh yes, we all went to the Pineview Pavillion. That was famous. And there was another place in Monroe, the Red Barn. There were 2 dance halls. Of course, there were dance halls all over. At that age, in the 60s and the early 70s. But Pineview Pavillion was quite a place. It was a dance hall. You took your jug, and when you wanted to drink, you went out in the parking lot and took a couple of hits, came back in, danced, and there was the fights. There was always fights if you could get involved in that, if you wanted to, over another girl or whatever. It was, yeah, they were active places on Saturday night. There was a freezer plant that's down on Steamboat Avenue, down in there, and one 4th of July, the freezers they stored bait in there, fish bait in there, and the freezers broke down, and nobody was on duty, and it went 2 or 3 days until all the bait spoiled, and there was quite a scene around here. And I'll have to say that the DEP, in all their wisdom, instead of pushing the bait into the river and improving the fishing, they hauled it 20 miles away. So they put it in dump trucks, and all the juice was running out of the back of the dump trucks and running over. It was awful. It was terrible. At the time, my mother had passed away. We were trying to sell her house, and people would come look at it, and they'd get out of the car, and before they jumped back in the car to leave town, you'd say, well, this is only temporary, but they thought you were lying because of that fish smell. It was quite a time. It was a bad time. Like I've said before, it's just a great place to grow up and to live in. Well, I think it's the thought of being available to help. If somebody's down and out, the people of Winterport will rally around them. It doesn't matter who they are or how long you've known them or whatever. If somebody needs something, the people of Winterport are ready to help.